How can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
Hi, Rich. So,
Right.
I know that you have watched the video. So, what is your reaction about Ben Shapiro's answer?
Ben Shapiro is, I'm sure, a sincere person, but it is quite possible to be a sincere person and to be sincerely wrong. He is speaking out of his ignorance and his lack of knowledge. He thinks he knows something about the history of racism, the history of income inequality, but he doesn't have a clue about what he's talking about. The actual history of race, systemic racism, grows out of income inequality with the large plantation owners in the 17th century. When they were threatened with a number of economic issues, in order to deal with those economic issues, they created the false hypothesis of race. Science has proven time and time again that there is no such thing as race. And throughout the 400 or so years of history, the investor elite has convinced societies across the globe to embrace the idea of race as genuine and valid and truth. So it has been normalized, but it is not true. There is no such thing as race scientifically. Now, because the plantation owners needed to increase their labor force as they increased the size of their farms, they needed to dehumanize and de-Christianize Africans in the 17th century to make them slaves for life. And because they were slaves for life, there was a very low cost, and typically they would be serving for, I don't know, somewhere you could maybe estimate 7 to 10 years before they would die because of the severity of conditions. But the elite plantation owners would have the benefit of their labor for whatever length of their lifetime was. And through the labor of African-derived people, they were able to build their wealth. And that's where the relationship between income inequality and systemic racism come into being. Systemic racism was created in order to establish and maintain a flow of African-derived people as slaves across the globe. And so he really doesn't know what he's talking about. He knows some of the history, but not enough. I don't think that he has gone far enough into the history. I don't think he also does not understand epigenetics and how racism systemic racism transfers from generation to generation, and how the trauma that is associated with racism impacts emerging generations of people of color. So I think it's just a matter of his ignorance and his not knowing what he's talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that everything that you said also, explaining systemic racism and, income inequality, we could all read this and understand this on your book, right? That you write,
Yeah.
Ending Racism, the Path to Oneness and the Rise of the Optimized Human Being, correct?
Correct.
So
Yes.
I believe that everybody should also get the book so that they could fully understand, everything that has been, going lately about systemic racism and income equality. So a lot of people do not understand, and it would be better if people would, find time and find energy and effort to really understand these things.
Yes.
Correct?
Very much so.
Yes.
Very much.
Yes. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
Okay.